Okay.
Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel State. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
Hi, Sloan. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right tonight. It's it's Thursday. We're inching our way ever so closely to the weekend. You got big plans?
Big plans. Oh man, I don't know. Walk the dog, take care of some chores around the house. No, nothing crazy.
You sound like you're married, but you're not. We'll
But
get
I'm
you
not.
married one day. That's right. That's the best part. Yeah, some weekends are great, some are not. So we're going to dive right in to convicted perverts in the school system. Why are we doing that? Because we're going to be talking about, well, first of all, it exists, and we have to educate the public, sadly, on the deep underbelly of what goes on in our schools and in our healthcare system, et cetera. But there's two other reasons. One of them is that the Democrats are making a lot of hay about teachers don't get respect. Teachers don't get respect. When in fact they are, doing soft on crime laws that either lets teachers get abused in the classroom, which we'll talk about, or abuse others in the classroom. And we're going to talk about a new law that we're going to break down. But first of all, I've got to do this. This is just, by the way, a cursory view of the last 2 weeks in North Carolina. So this is a guy from Northwest Cabarrus High School. That's right in your neck of the woods, right by Concord, right? Unlawfully, willingly, and feloniously engaged in sex with a 10-year-old child. That's the accusation. This is a high school teacher, okay, outside of Charlotte. Next, Christopher Tuft in an elementary school. This guy was teaching in Guilford. Second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. By the way, this is just in a 2-week time slot, guys. This is not all year. We've been putting these out here every single time they happen, and I know that you're getting tired of hearing them. I am too. Dennis Bannock from a middle school in Caswell County. 4 counts of felony sex crime with a student is what he is accused of. Of all the things, I'm just going to tell you guys something. I'm just going to keep it real. I excuse none of this. All of it is horrific. But you might be able to understand, if you have to teach middle school, that maybe you would think about being drunk to be able to tolerate it, right? Maybe. You might fantasize about it, right? I mean, I don't know what it's like to be around middle schoolers all day in school. I do know what it's like being locked in the home with them and having them do stuff. So... But in all candor, being drunk while teaching is universally understood to be a no-no.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, look, I'm sure. I mean, we all know how stressful it can be with just to have a couple kids in the house. 30 of them in a classroom, I'm sure isn't easy, but that's why
Look, it's the first couple of weeks back. She hadn't stopped her day drinking habit, I guess, and got busted. But the rest of them are very serious. And we, Sean, have been talking about this every month. We, have 5, 6, 7 that we have arrested. So it's a real problem. Now, this might be a solution. It's been a bill that has been in the works for a long time. The House passed it. It's waiting for Senate approval, is my understanding of the status right now. But what it's going to do is going to mandate, okay, bus drivers, substitute teachers, contractors, all employees to have background checks. Now, the language is it may include fingerprinting, National Sex Offender Registry, and multi-state background searches. So here's the way it works now. Every school district may have a policy to check backgrounds. They may not. Now, Sean, that may, a lot of these people don't have a criminal history until they do something.
Right. I don't imagine that, many of the individuals across, not just in North Carolina, but even across the country who end up committing these heinous crimes had prior offenses, when they were hired. So, I mean, they may not have a criminal background at the time, but I think that it's important that we're still checking and that we have a universal system across the state that maybe we're, abiding by. And I think that, to your point, there should be we should standardize how we're checking these people, but even more so than that, we shouldn't necessarily just be checking them when we employ them, but also at least at bare minimum, periodically checking them throughout the duration of their tenure at whichever school that they work.
I agree with that. Like every 2 years would be, I think, reasonable. And where I do think that we may be able to catch a lot of people with records is the contractors, because I know they bring in a lot of like after school contractors and things like that. And there's been some pretty sketchy characters, especially in light of all the DEI pro that they're doing. Bus drivers is another thing. I mean, I've been background checked many times, that we all have for jobs, right? So the bill also has in there that if someone objects to having a background check, they may not be considered for hiring. I think that's perfectly reasonable. And another one is, and this is a big one, stricter reporting of misconduct by licensed school employees. Here's how this works out. There have been occasions where there has been accusations of assault. Now, accusations do not mean someone's guilty, obviously. And a lot of things can be made up or whatever. They have not gone reported. So the protocol is that it goes from the school to the superintendent, to the local school board, to the DPI. So I think what this does is it makes it a class 1 felony for, let's say, a principal to kind of keep this internally and not report it.
And I think that's excellent. I mean, because as of right now, we don't even have right now a structure, a standardized structure across the board. But I think a lot of other states, including right now North Carolina, we rely on the individual themselves to disclose when something happens. And as you said, you go through the hierarchy. But even then, even at that point, still relying on disclosure from there's multiple levels of disclosure, right? That are, I don't know what is that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's reporting. So it's the reporting. And I will say that, I was an education reporter for 4 years before I did this for North Carolina. And so most schools are pretty good about it. The failure was with DPI. So Department of Public Instruction, the superintendent at the time was Catherine True, would get reports of someone resigning their license because they were accused of things or they have been convicted. And she would leave them on the public list of publicly licensed teachers. So there needs to be something too for the superintendent. But bottom line, we need to know when things have happened. The public needs to know. Now, this is important. If an employee resigns within 30 days of an allegation, it's presumed connected to misconduct. That is new. So you don't just get to quit in North Carolina and then go to South Carolina and continue on with the same alleged conduct. That is wrong. So this is what I really, like as well. First of all, I like all of it. Reporting of threats and assaults on teachers. So in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, you've got the majority, I think 61% of Charlotte-Mecklenburg students are minorities, right? And so what Charlotte-Mecklenburg does is they don't report most of their violent crimes in school because it would shift in minority reporting, et cetera. And they do this DEI where it's applicable to that. This means all assaults, threats, weapon possession, and controlled substance must be reported to law enforcement. This is a big change, you guys. Principals have been derelict in their duty to do so. That needs to be taken care of. Supervisors must report threats and assaults on employees. Do you know how many teachers in a year get their ass beaten from students? It was over 1,100 last year.
In North Carolina.
Yes. And a lot of them came.
Insane.
Yeah. And a lot of them came from elementary schools. Believe it or not. I mean, not a majority. I wish I had the exact statistics, but a surprising amount.
That's very concerning.
Well, the Democrats talk a lot about teacher retention, and they say that it's pay. But if you have to go to work and worry about getting your ass beaten on a daily basis, or God forbid, a school shooting, which we see in the news, and you do not feel safe, that has to be balanced into this. So don't you think that this might help with teacher retention?
Well, absolutely. But I mean, I think that in terms of violent acts, particularly, it says here, assaults, serious threats, weapons possession, controlled substances, fine. But in terms of violence, especially, this would be effective, because what we do know is that when there are no consequences for these actions, we've seen it in the adult world, right? The revolving door, cashless bail. We let them back out on the streets. They do the same thing. So, I mean, I got in trouble in middle school and high school, but, I never had a cop come in and interrogate me. But if I did, I imagine I would have straightened my act up, much quicker than the vice principal, reprimanding me. So I think that there need to be consequences for these actions. 1,100 teachers assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
Something has to be done about that. And I don't have any statistical data.
Well, we have 1.4 million kids in the school system.
I would assume, though, that the consequence for assaulting a teacher obviously is not severe enough if we have 1,100 in a year.
Well, it is. I mean, they'll go to, in all candor, based on my research, students can be accused of sexual assault, criminally accused, and come back the next day to school wearing an ankle bracelet, presenting themselves in the same classroom as the alleged victim, and they can still play football, etc. And so to that end, we know that's happening. We have documented cases of that happening. We have documented cases of sexual assault on girls happening where parents aren't told. We have documented cases of abuse happening where parents aren't told. And so you and I always talk about this, especially, and Margot when she's here and not vacationing. The law is great. The accountability mechanisms to enforce that law need to be there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
So you and I were talking earlier this afternoon, and you thought there could be ways to strengthen this, and you gave me a great slide. And this is this is how fastidious Sean is. So he makes charts, and he compared the Florida bill that's analogous to this one, which you're right, it should be the gold standard. So explain what they do in Florida and what the difference is, and what do you think?
Yeah. So long story short, basically what Florida does in layman's terms is they use what's called, and it was just up on the screen, I don't know why I can't keep remembering this term.
It's called the wrap back. Okay.
Yeah. So this is what my personal opinion is, that the current bill, HB 775, is great. I love it. I love the direction that we're moving. I don't think that it goes far enough. My opinion is that it's still post, if we were to get this passed through the Senate and we were to instill this into law, it still heavily relies on what is the word? I can't believe
reporting.
So reporting.
Yeah,
you rely on individuals.
But it does have a class 1 felony. So if you're not reporting to the state,
correct.
Then,
it seems like that. Yes, there are like mechanisms in there, but it still relies. Let's say that a teacher were to have committed a heinous or violent crime in another state, or another jurisdiction. That jurisdiction,
their personal lives.
Yeah, completely unrelated to school. But let's say that it was off campus in another place. The law still requires the teacher to, they may be arrested, but it still requires the teacher to come in and say, "Hi, I was arrested for this," and disclose it.
There's no system. The systems aren't talking to each other.
Exactly. There's no automatic. Whereas in Florida, what they do, they use this system. It's called the wrap back system. So it is in partnership with federal agencies. I believe the FBI in particular.
FDLE, FBI. So that's the state. This is kind of like the SBI here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they fingerprint all of the teachers when they do their background checks. And then basically what happens is they say this individual is in contact with minors on a regular basis. And at any point that individual is then arrested and fingerprinted, it triggers the FBI to alert the Board of Education, if you will, or whichever institution issues the licenses, the teacher's licenses, and says this individual has committed a heinous crime, whether it be in your jurisdiction or not. And I'm red flagging this to you that this individual may or may not be a threat to the children that they are overseeing. And it's automatic. It's instantaneous.
So it's a system rather than individuals to do that. Right. I like that.
You're relying without it, you're relying on the individual. Now I'm just going to say it like this. If I was a teacher who had committed a violent crime on a child in another state, or even in this state, what brings me to come to the school board and say, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I did this." You already committed a crime once. Yes, thank you. That was the word I was self-disclosure.
Yeah.
They have to self-disclose. If you're committing these crimes, like, what's to stop you from just not disclosing it?
Well, now that you mentioned that, we need that for doctors too, because we're having a hell of a time. So these revered occupations that we're supposed to revere and believe all doctors and believe all teachers is a bunch of bullshit, actually. And so we need something like that. And speaking about police officers, speaking about law and order, JD Vance came to Concord yesterday, gave a great speech. It was really focused a lot on law and order. So here's what he said about the recent murder of Irina Zaruska. You and I were just at the memorial, sadly, of what happened on Monday. But it's a big deal to everyone in North Carolina, actually everyone in the country.
I appreciate that. And the thing is, it actually bumped out of the news, this terrible story in Charlotte. And here's the basic summary, as far as I can recall it, is you have a violent criminal who has been arrested 14 times, often for very violent offenses, who gets on a bus with an innocent young girl, 22 years old, and slits her throat, and she dies. She died because she was coming home from work. She worked at a pizzeria. She came from a beautiful family. She had a young boyfriend. She had her entire life ahead of her. And she was actually a refugee from Ukraine. So she came from a war-torn country. She sought shelter in the United States of America. And because of soft-on-crime policies, she was murdered here, not in the war-torn country she came from. Isn't that a disgrace? And isn't that an insult to the incredible law enforcement officers who arrested this person 14 times? They did everything that they could to keep this thug off the streets, and it was the political leadership that failed, and we got to be honest about that.
Okay, so I think that's a great angle that a lot of people don't talk about. The cops did their job, and I imagine it's frustrating when you're a cop and you run somebody's record and you're like, okay. We reported on one guy last week, 63 arrests. 63. you might be at the point where you're like, why am I bothering?
Yeah, and I imagine it's extremely frustrating for law enforcement, um, who are doing their duty and doing the best that they can to keep communities safe, to be pulling people off the streets who, and a lot of times it's too late, right? In
Yeah.
this case, it was too late, but they got the guy. It just so happened that there were 14 other occurrences where they pulled him off the street. This was sick. It was senseless. And even the man's mother had been
Yeah.
saying that he needed to be behind bars. He needed to be out of the pub, whether it be institutionalized. I don't care. But the mother was even saying he cannot be on the streets and in public. He's a danger. He, I believe, also threatened her,
And
his own
his sister,
mother, and
right,
his.
did violence to the sister. And so oftentimes we do see that the victims are first the ones closest. They're the family, right? And so I think I like this bill. I think you and I agree that maybe it could have gone. You and I are always, look, we analyze. So here's the law. The law is passed and it's on Josh Stein's desk. That is a Democratic governor of North Carolina. Death penalty resumption. So it streamlines the capital appeals so they're quick, and we can get somebody to lethal injection. It permits backup methods, but it requires lethal injections. And so, the thing is now is they're saying, oh, we can't find the medication we need for lethal injections, et cetera. And maybe we can ask Senator Overcash about that when he comes on. We want this up and working. Mental health and safety, just what we were talking about. It expands the grounds for involuntary commitment. And I think that's where this might have come in, where the mother who was victimized could come in and do something about that. So I like that. Orders a study on the link between mental health and public safety. We don't need to see that. We really don't. Here's the thing. Violent offenses must go before a judge within 48 hours, not a magistrate with no training. Limits quick release for serious crimes, right? Tougher pre-trial standards, which is good. Now, the magistrate now can be yanked by the chief judge. In this case, it's a Republican, Paul Newby, right? But if there's some egregious acts, or perhaps he can go in and say, look, everyone without a law degree or everyone without, whatever can beat it, right? So I kind of like this. What are your thoughts?
Am I wrong, Sloan, to say I thought that when I was reading through that it eliminated cash bail for a significant amount of multiple different types of offenses?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love that. I've done some significant, since we've talked about this just the other day, just doing some research on it. I wouldn't say, I know it back and forth, but from what I've read about it, the elimination of cash bail, cashless bail.
Cashless bail, right.
And
by the way, just so everyone, our listeners know, cashless bail was really rolled out. I mean, Charlotte, North Carolina was really the testing ground, and it came out in 2020. And that just shows you how far left people are. And so the notion, Democrats have made the argument that keeping the ridiculous argument, by the way, that keeping him in jail would not have helped this. Bullshit. How could he have been doing the crime and in jail simultaneously? It just doesn't work.
I again completely agree. It's the revolving door. This Democrat concept of cashless bail is somehow equitable is just ridiculous to me, especially when you cannot make that argument when the man has 14 offenses, 14 prior arrests. Sorry. So love that about it. I also love the mental health and the involuntary evaluation piece of it, mandating, that judicial officials can actually order.
And so can families. And so can families, because so often, Sean, we will hear that a mother, a sister, a spouse. In fact, a lot of times we're hearing that, even with these kids that go and shoot these schools up. Yeah. And they're not able to involuntarily commit them. And had they done that, the outcome would have been better.
Would have been very different. So, I mean, I think I love this. There's not much that I could add in terms. I particularly am appreciative for the ability to I don't know what the word was, but basically remove the magistrate judge, especially in this case where we had a magistrate judge who had absolutely
still working on the bench. And the Democrat chief judge has refused to take action. She is still on the bench today.
And has absolutely no experience in the law.
My understanding is she did not pass the bar. She owns a fried chicken place.
Yeah.
I checked her background. She has several bankruptcies according to records, which begs the question, if you've got bankruptcies and you've got liens, doesn't that put you in a position to be blackmailed perhaps?
But regardless, let's just set all that aside, Sloan. If you can't pass the bar exam, I could be wrong. I don't believe that she went to law school. Maybe she did on some online.
She did. I think she did on paper.
Okay, on paper. But if you can't pass the bar and understand the concept of the law, how are you supposed to be the one, is the word arbitrating, like facilitating it?
Well, how do you know the law? And I don't know that she had a really good command of it. But again, we're never going to know. We are never going to know unless actions and there's an investigation. And so
I particularly love that portion of
it's called accountability, and it's long overdue.
Yeah.
Long overdue. So here's Josh John's comments. Now I'm cutting out a lot of it, but the constant refrain now, instead of cashless bail with the Democrats, now we've moved to a concept called rehabilitation. And it's kind of, justice, or what do you call it? Restorative justice, right? People need a place to go when they're having a schizophrenic attack. This guy did not, he's actually saying a schizophrenic attack. This is an insult, in my opinion, of the highest magnitude and order. To let this scum off the hook if they're a risk to other people. We need some place for them to go. Yet jail. The guy was an admitted drug addict. So that needs to be factored in. And one thing the bill doesn't do is provide any funding to help us address that issue. I don't understand that. I do not understand why putting someone in jail for a heinous murder is so objectionable to the left. Well,
I guess without being I'm not a medical professional, but I'm just saying, I mean, if you inject some sort of drug and you have
cocaine and marijuana. So cocaine and marijuana is what he was on, okay? Because I got a hold of his jail records. But that's specific. You know why? Because it's known to give people schizophrenic type of reactions.
But so regardless of what it is, you're injecting it, you're ingesting it, you're smoking it, I don't really care. But if you cannot call that a schizophrenic attack, first of all, like, period. What he's trying to do there, in my opinion, is turn this into a mental health issue, which is actually what we've seen done repetitively in the media, not just in North Carolina, but across the board. We want to say that
wait a minute. Now, if it were me or you that committed murder, you damn right they wouldn't be talking about mental health. And we know that.
Yeah. But I mean, we see this narrative perpetuated. It was a mental health crisis. And it's a mental health crisis. Well,
conservatives are not allowed mental health crises.
No, but I mean, to conflate this, no, there's a reason why we have controlled substances, and there's a reason why those controlled substances you're not allowed to ingest them or consume them. Yeah. They are illegal because, we have said this creates an environment that is dangerous to other people. This is not a mental health crisis. This is a man who was on drugs and who had a history of violent attacks against others, including people in his family. So, spare me your cries about, someone with schizophrenia needs a place to go. That's a completely separate issue from someone who's committing violent crimes, who's high on drugs.
Absolutely. But look, I think we see now a clear chasm between, and I hate to say this because this should not be political, between the Republican worldview on how crime should be dealt with and the Democrat worldview of how crime should be dealt with. And unfortunately, voters are going to have to decide. And so tonight we're going to have on Senator Brad Overcash, who had a lot to do with the passage of this bill. Hello, Senator.
Hello, Sloan. Hello, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are thrilled that the bill was passed. I feel like it's long overdue. What was the Senate's thinking in drafting this bill and getting it to passage?
You know, Sloan, I completely agree with you. This is long overdue. We just cannot allow this lawlessness, this fear to be instilled into our citizenry in North Carolina anymore. And it was time, and probably past time, to take a stand and bring in, frankly, a lot of these rogue counties that have allowed their justice system to be perverted, as it was in this case.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. You're right. It's not, Charlotte isn't an outlier. Sadly, Durham as well. In fact, Durham is infamous for poking the rest of the state in the eye with some of its policies and doing things that are frankly in violation of state law and federal law, such as not cooperating with ICE. And so we've seen these Democrat-run cities who will actually make their own citizens a political pawn in their silly, silly games. And it's very disappointing to see. I'm going to put the vote up because I think I want everyone to see that we're not just whistling Dixie here. This is the roll call in the House. And to the credit that, there are some common sense Democrats who, in my mind, are looking out for their constituents who voted yes. You're not going to see very many, but when we get over to your chamber,
yeah,
what in the world?
It's disgraceful. Not only did we not have a single Democrat in the Senate vote for it, all but 8 of the Democrats got up and fled the chamber. And they all got up and walked out when we started our push and amended the bill to restart the death penalty. And I think that's something that I'm not hearing a lot of folks talk about. I know you're talking about it, Sloan, but a lot of the legacy media outlets are not talking about the death penalty portion of this. I think it's a very key component to this bill. And most of the Democrats got up and fled the chamber. The ones that stayed voted against this. And I find it disgraceful.
I mean, this, as I said, if this were reversed, okay, they would have no compunction whatsoever at throwing the book at someone. And, now we're hearing about mental health, et cetera, with an individual with a rap sheet that's 14 long. I talked about actually last week in Charlotte, just in a week, we previewed 5 different crimes where the average person had been back and forth in jail 20 times, 163 times, who committed, by the way, a very violent act against a legal immigrant who was here, brought his family here, hardworking man that had a taco truck, doing very well for himself, an older guy, and beat the tar out of this guy 63 times, Senator. So,
Sloan, I mean, it's unconscionable. And, some of this started creeping into these county systems. Now, there have been problems before, but Roy Cooper, when he was governor, signed multiple executive orders and created something called, and I want to get this right, the Task Force for Racial Equity in the Judicial System. That I would recommend that all of your viewers go back and take a look at the proposals that came out of that task force. In this bill, by the way, we eliminated that and declared that any future resurrection of that had to come through an act of the General Assembly. But this task force for racial equity had all of these terms in it encouraging and coming up with ready-made recommendations for lawlessness in these liberal counties. And many counties adopted those recommendations wholesale. So it starts with Cooper, and then Governor Cooper did not want of the death penalty to be carried out and executions to remain in this state. Instead, he wanted to end death row, backlog in death row, by letting all of these violent criminals off the hook with his midnight pardons as he left the governor's office.
15 of
What
them.
this bill does is restart the death penalty in the state of North Carolina, which is badly needed.
Well, J.D. Vance talked about that, and he talked about what a weak and dangerous candidate, quite frankly, Cooper is, and he is dangerous. Make no mistake about it. He has a folksy accent and way about him, but he is incredibly dangerous for the state. 15 pardons, as you intimated. Some of them, one of them, and I may not give the exact specifics because, frankly, I tried to block it out, a devil, a Satan here on this earth, tied someone up to a tree and murdered them. 15 commuted their sentences. And so when, this needs to be an issue during the election, because these aren't, by the way, all of these cases, Senator, they were not youthful indiscretions. These were all adults who were in their right mind, who committed heinous acts against others, human beings, and into their lives.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right, Sloan. And for far too long in this state, the left has gotten away with, they don't have the guts or the votes to get rid of the death penalty in North Carolina. So what they've done is their typical lawfare attitude, and they've gotten it bottled up in the courts. They've convinced doctors to not carry out the lethal injection, et cetera, et cetera. It's been one excuse after another not to carry out the death penalty, which is the law of the land in North Carolina. So one of the things we did with this is we limited just what are right now limitless appeals nearly on the death penalty. So we've capped the time to final disposition on that, so that these murderers and folks on death row cannot just continue to appeal this for decades at a time. And in fact, it is decades in some cases. But the other thing that we've done is we've said, yes, lethal injection is the primary method of execution in North Carolina. We didn't change that. But if within a short period of time, and we've got it set out in there in the time period in this law, that method cannot be utilized for any reason. It can be unavailability of drugs, unavailability of those to administer it. It can be any type of court challenge. If it is found that is not available, then the adult corrections has 120 days to find another suitable method of execution. And we don't limit it. Some states like South Carolina, they've added methods of execution. We absolutely have an unlimited method availability in North Carolina now as of this law. So if one method doesn't work, as long as the United States Supreme Court has not declared that method unconstitutional, that is available in North Carolina now. We're going to restart the death penalty, and we're going to do it in a timely manner in North Carolina.
I can't wait to see this sucker executed. This has been a national trauma. And I'm glad, I'm so proud that there's been a response. And the last thing I want to ask you about, we're talking about the chasm. It's not only with the votes, it's with actions, and it's kind of insulting. So we've got a senator, he's out of Charlotte, Senator Muhammad. And by the way, I'm just going to tell you guys, I do not like this man because he despises Jews, and he okays Hamas raping women and murdering women, because he was one of 4 senators that walked out on just a simple condemnation of Hamas. So we know his attitude about murder. We know his attitude about women and crimes against women, because he was one of just a couple that walked out. But I digress. And so Senator Muhammad says that, we don't want anyone talking about this. We don't want to politicize this. But Senator, last time I checked, the Democrats politicize everything to the point that they walked out of the vote.
I don't respect anyone that doesn't have the guts to vote on something one way or the other. The fact that they walked out on the vote to make a political statement, that is cowardice to me. And on that amendment that Senator Muhammad proposed, I thought it was ridiculous. He was trying to divert from the discussion in the room.
To be political.
Absolutely. So I thought that was absurd. And I would add to that, I saw a clip. Now I don't watch CNN anymore and haven't for many years.
Bad for your mental health.
But it is. But I saw a clip on X today of Governor Stein, and CNN. Dana Bash asked him, "The bill's on your desk. What are you going to do, Governor?" Oh, you're
part of the quote.
You're stepping out.
Part of the quote, and look, this seems to be right now the Democratic refrain is it's mental health. And I found this particularly insulting. He said, well, the fella just needed a place to go.
He not only that, he actually went a step further. And I know you saw it, but I think your viewers need to understand. He went a step further. He blamed law enforcement. He said, I propose to the General Assembly that we hire more law enforcement officers. Law enforcement, and I was at the rally too, Sloan. I thought it was great with J.D. Vance yesterday. But the vice president put it well. Law enforcement did their job in this case. They arrested this man 14 times prior to this heinous murder. They did their job. Law enforcement locked him up. And then it was the revolving door of cashless bail and just allowing someone to be arrested repetitively and let out on their own recognizance, which is not even worth the paper it's printed on. And Governor Stein said, yeah, it's a law enforcement issue. We need more law enforcement. We don't need more law enforcement. Law enforcement's done the job. I mean, we do. I love law enforcement. I would love more law enforcement.
Yeah.
But law enforcement's not the problem here. The problem is this revolving door in our jails. And that's what this law corrects as well.
What a dramatic upswing from defund the police 4 years ago to now we need more police. You really can't make it up.
Well, and Sloan, I find it so rich too, not to jump in here,
please.
I just have to say this. I find it so rich that the left wants to amend the bill to say, well, you can't use these people's names unless you have consent. Imagine what would they have done with George Floyd in the Summer of Love had this bill been nationalized. Like you, it's rules for thee and not for me. It's just disgraceful.
And Sean, you're exactly right. And I believe that in this state and across this country, that people have been awakened. And it's a shame that it took this horrific murder, that it took the assassination of Charlie Kirk and these other things that have gone on to maybe wake our populace up. But I don't think people are going to put up with this anymore.
Well, I think the last part that I just want to add is, I mean, I think, we saw a contrast to what we saw in New York with Daniel Penny. We're to a point where if you are stand by, or you stand by and you act to save someone, you're charged. If you don't do anything, you just sit and watch the person die. I mean, it's something needs to be done from the perspective of we arrest these people and then it's a revolving door. There need to be consequences and penalties for this, which we haven't seen yet, but we will this time.
Fair. The fairness of this all, DEI kills, and it's not just a metaphor. I mean, we've seen it definitely. And this is one of the instances where, look, you don't have to believe Sloan Ratcliffe or Brad Overcash or Sean. The material fact is they have it in this equity plan that was developed by actually Anita Earls, who is a Supreme Court judge. Okay. She came from a Soros backed entity. I'm going to tell y'all all about it. It came from Soros and Stein's father, Adam, and also Cooper. So Cooper actually was involved, and so that he oversaw it. But our governor has his not only, thumbprints on it, his whole hands on it. So everybody involved from the Supreme Court now, and that's why we have to get rid of all of them at the ballot box. So With that, Senator, thank you very much for coming on. I know our viewers have really wanted to hear from you. They've been DMing me all day, and I can tell you who really wants to hear from you is people in Charlotte. I've got about 100 people Sean and I met with, and we've been talking to concerned, decent citizens. Most of them never voted, never been active, but have been awakened by this murder in a way that I can't explain it. And so hearing from you means a lot to them, and they wanted me to thank you very much for taking quick action.
Well, Sloan, thank you so much for having me on. Thanks for all you do and the voice that you give. And Sean, it's great to be with you as well. And I just appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
All right. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
I mean, that was great. I love the fact that they took quick action. And you and I have been talking a lot about political violence, and it's actually very real. So we're going to play the statement from the head ICE director, and we're going to bring in Brian Talbert, who is a wonderful, prolific activist who has been at my side, and Mayor Robert Burns. We had him on Tuesday night at our side for years, fighting against kiddie drag shows and porn in schools. But he's going to tell us all about some violence, some Trantifa that we are dealing with, sadly. And so actually, it's not sadly, it's predictably. We've been talking about it for years. So this is, as you guys know, in Dallas, it was a horrific ICE shooting. Another left-wing lunatic shot 2 migrants and himself. But listen to the steps that he took to do it.
The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. Anyone who creates or distributes these apps that is designed to spot, track, and locate ICE officers are well aware of the dangers that they are exposing to law enforcement. It's a casting call to invite bad actors to attack law enforcement officers. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target, and this is exactly what we saw happen in Dallas yesterday. The media has been amplifying these apps, even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say, "I told you so," but here we are.
Oh.
ICE continues to prioritize the safety and security of our personnel, detained aliens, and facilities. We will do everything possible.
I'm going to put it to the last part.
That is something that's unacceptable.
Wait.
Instead, he killed a detainee and shot 2 others. That is something that's unacceptable. The rhetoric that's out there on social media, the rhetoric that is being said by some community leaders in other states needs to stop.
Okay. And he talks about, you guys, there has been a 1,000% uptick in attacks via ICE. Now, Brian, we've been on together for so many years. You were with Gays Against Groomers, a wonderful movement that brought together the LGBT network of people. Wait. Yes. Hold on. LGBT. Sorry.
Okay. But they are LGBT, but it's trans that also stand against,
that is true. Actually, that is true.
We have a lot of trans, very, very active activists.
Right. Right. And we've always talked about that. Look, do what you want, but leave the kids alone. And so that, by the way, that simple retort has gotten a lot of heat for you, a lot of heat for me. I mean, I got my very first death threat a serious death threat after I reported on the grooming clinics from 2 to 3 to 4-year-olds at Duke, ECU, etc. So these people are serious, and they're going after you. And so what happened was, and I want to tell you guys what happened. I think it was last week. So we discovered a trans, actually, it was 2 days after Charlie Kirk had been murdered. And I found that there was a book that had just been released. Hang on. Whoops. Hold on, guys. Okay. Be Gay, Do Crime, Everyday Acts of Queer Resistance and Rebellion. That was 2 days after we were finding out that a trans adjacent guy who inscribed his motivation on the bullets, killed Charlie Kirk. This scared the hell out of me. So, long story short, I read. Blue Buchanan, by the way, is a professor at Asheville, right? So I got his thesis. By the way, he's about to have a full. He's about to transition, and he raised money to get a boob job. By the way, yeah. You know, what do you call it? GoFundMe? But anyway, he wanted white, gay, conservative men basically to die. So I have anyone who is white, gay, and conservative in this state, I know. So the first people I called was both of y'all. I said, oh my God, what in the hell? And Sean, you read this guy's manifesto. Tell us what he was saying.
Well, I did. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to quote it directly, but effectively what he was saying is that the white gay male who leans conservative, or even in some parts was saying that doesn't stand out and vocally defend some of the positions that I just personally do not agree with, are the biggest threat to the trans community and to the queer community. And I know Brian, had mentioned as part of Gays Against Groomers is they recognize LGBT. I jokingly, referenced, the LGBT kind of thing that the Trump administration is doing. But regardless, his position, the position in this dissertation was that this is people exactly like me are the biggest threat to democracy and to the lives of trans individuals.
Well, I've got a video. I'm going to let him say it in his own words. Can I play that?
Let's do it. It'll say it better than me.
In this battle to the death over group status. And so really, if we're trying to figure out why anti-CRT stuff is happening, if we're trying to figure out abortion bans, if we're trying to figure out anti-trans and specifically youth-focused anti-trans legislation, really what we have to be looking at is claims that, again, people have a biological and social imperative to reproduce not just children, but what children represent, which is things like white futurity, that white people will continue to exist. And I should note, when I say this, I don't mean necessarily white children in that biological sense, but as a group who receives benefits, status, and stratification.
Okay.
This is the first I've heard of this guy. I heard of him too, or girl. I don't know what he is, but is it a male or a female?
It's a good looking man, though. No joke. It's a man.
Okay.
I got too.
Okay. At first I heard about him is through you, but I looked at where he's doing his book thing on Friday is in Asheville at Firestone. That's a big anarchist bookstore. I mean, there's a big Antifa element that is coming into the gay community. I've spoke about this back in 2018 when I became a target of Antifa. I saw how they were targeting the young gay community, and that you had people that had been disowned by their parents or thrown out of their house or whatever, and they were coming in and they were accepting them just to indoctrinate them and everything. And I saw so many young gay people. I do Charlotte Pride protests ever since 2017 when I was kicked out for supporting Trump. And the amount of young gays who are out there with Antifa, because Antifa's got a large presence at Charlotte Pride, was just astounding, and they believed that they were the only ones that were, listening to them. And in turn, they rewarded them by listening to them. And they're all, and the gay people, I just don't understand. The gay people are more willing to commit the violence. They're the ones that are, you always see we see these violent riots and stuff. You see the pride flag or whatever. They're always flying the trans flag or whatever. So that I do believe comes in with the Antifa coming into play.
That's one thing I discussed with Sean before the show. I said it is incredibly important, and what I wanted to get out of this segment is to make sure that people understand that part of the targets are gay people.
Mm-hmm.
So even though the perpetrators themselves, and we see this with Jews, some of the most virulently anti-Semitic protests are led by young, wayward Jews. And people will say, but wait a minute, they're actually leading it, so it's legitimized. And it silences voices like ours, where we're the target, but we're also blamed in a sense, right?
I've had 58 death threats. I've counted them. Quite a few have been investigated, but that's been since 2017. But you got to keep fighting. I do believe that gay people, gay conservatives, we've got to be the loudest. We're going to be the ones to put this an end to this, because there are crazies out there that are not going to distinguish the difference between me and a person who wants to dance and gyrate in lingerie for a little child, and they're going to come after both of us, you know. So we've got to be louder and bring attention to this. That the problem is get the gay community to, you know, get involved. They're all scared, and I understand that. I mean, You've seen the violence from Antifa. They've been to my house twice. They've done thousands of dollars worth of damage. I don't condemn anyone who is afraid to stand up to them, you know.
Right. I mean, and so we're talking about left-wing violence, and you've hit on something really powerful, because in my research and in my colleagues' research, we look into radical violence on college campuses. And what I have found is either professors are grooming young girls, wayward girls, to either become gay or to get in that community. But the precursor seems to be that you're going to accept a gender, you're going to be driven into gender dysphoria, right? Or something. So there is a sexual element to that. And that's why you're seeing Andy Ngo, Sean, you and I follow him, talk about trans-tifa.
Yes.
I mean, we've all been threatened.
I mean, they were just in, where was it, Asheville or was it Durham, where they were hiding out, that the one that killed the Border Patrol agent.
Chapel Hill.
They've been here for a couple of years, you know. They're hiding out here, you know.
Yeah. And make no mistake about it. We've seen school shootings, Charlie Kirk. So, and we're seeing a lot of it in Union County. Sean, are you seeing it where you are?
In terms of, Antifa in particular, I know that they exist and are active in Charlotte. As Brian mentioned, I mean, they tend to make their presence known at pride events here in the city. In terms of digging any deeper than that, I would have to do, some additional research, but I do know that Brian is correct. You know, they make a presence at Charlotte Pride every year.
We cut down on a lot of their activity. You know, Charlotte CMPD did not even know that North Carolina had a mask law. And in 2019, when they came to Mirbean Park to try to confront us while we were getting ready to do our protest, I informed CMPD about the mask law. And they went over there and informed them that if they did not take off their masks, they were going to be arrested. That was really other than Charlotte Pride, that was the last time I'd seen Antifa active in Charlotte area.
When was that?
I will tell you.
It was in 2019.
Okay.
I will tell you this: the No Kings protest. I had a video that I posted that went viral of the No Kings protests that was here in Charlotte. And if you go back. I'll repost it I'll find it and I'll repost it so that if you are watching and you do want to see it, you can see. I've got additional videos too that I took footage of that day. I infiltrated the No Kings protests, and they thought that I was one of them. Little did they know.
You had to disguise yourself as really super ugly. And that is so hard to do for conservatives. When you go undercover as a conservative, it is so hard.
I will tell you, this was not as hard because it was the first left-wing protest that I saw where they were handing out American flags and waving flags, but you had people destroying them. Anyways, besides the point, CMPD was extremely diligent. Everyone that walked by, and the video that I captured was the officers walking up and telling them, you take your mask off or you got to get out. So they have been enforcing that. I will tell you, you can see them from a
Mhm.
mile away. They've
Yeah.
got, they're dressed head to toe in black. They've got all kinds of stuff on them, and they're covering their faces and they're covering their heads. But CMPD, and this was just just a few months ago at the No Kings protest, extremely diligent, knocking people right
Yes.
out. There were multiple people who refused while I stood there for about 10, 15 minutes. In a 15-minute period, there were probably 10 people that walked through with masks on. And there were at least 3 that I remember that refused to remove their mask and decided to instead leave, which indicates to me actually that you were there to do something radical. Because if you don't want to pull your mask down and expose your face, you're up to something that we
But
don't
that's
know.
how they've gotten by with all this violence for so long, is being able to do it behind anonymity, where no one knows who they are or whatever, and they're just not used to some people standing up to them, and I think if more people would get involved, we wouldn't have half of these problems that we have, here locally. You mentioned Union County. We've got a little hotbed there in Union County, and I do believe, it's all targeted toward children. They wanted, with the drag shows at East Franks, they wanted to do that. We protested. We were there every week. We were there every weekend. I mean, from 90 to 100-degree weather to freezing. We did it for almost a year and a half until we got them to stop doing their no drag shows and everything. But there's certain segments of those people that want to come after us for standing up like that. We have a militant transsexual, Mr. Kara Murphy. He is going after Mayor Burns quite often.
It's funny you say that, because here's what happened. This happened, but and I put this up so often because it's a friend of it's a friend of this professor's who lives in your area. She's head of the LGBTQ organization there, right? And they came after Mayor Burns, who we had on here, so hard. They're looking at pictures of him. This was posted on social media. Mayor Burns is in the middle, and Sean, that was you and I on Monday night. They were looking at these pictures, Brian, and then you messaged me that somebody out of the blue, this head of the LGBTQ, called me a Nazi before she found out I was Jewish. I guess just because I'm standing with Mayor Burns. I mean, this is the way these people are.
But Union County Pride is like in their 4th year, and they already have a history of inviting convicted child molesters to their events to speak on LGBT rights. I know everyone knows Chad Turner. He spoke there. What does a convicted child molester, what can he contribute to the conversation on LGBT rights? And now they have, I don't know if you saw the video of a drag show for children. It was at the comedy thing on South Boulevard. But the video was of a drag queen lifting his dress and then revealing bondage gear underneath the dress. And you can hear the children in the background. He is now the vice president of Union County Pride. There's a lot of pedo connections to this organization, and we're out there every single year. We're out there protesting them. We're drawing the connections between Crystal Robinson, the president, the one you were talking about, said that
came after me,
said that the only reason he is on the still on the North Carolina sex offender registry is because he's gay. She's basically defending him. No, he's not on the sex offender registry for being gay. He's on the sex offender registry for raping a 15-year-old child.
If the two of you had done something, you rest assured they wouldn't be making excuses for the two of you.
Right.
It's because he's left wing.
Right.
Well, and that's what's so dangerous about this book, this manifesto, if you will, the dissertation that I was talking about. I just pulled up my notes so that I could directly kind of quote you. The anthology brings together stories about queer people committing crimes, not crimes, but acts that break rules for a variety of reasons: survival, resistance, protest, autonomy. I apologize. The crimes are not always high stakes heists, but effectively what they call it queer chaos. They're saying that we have to push the boundaries to seek clean justice. This is radical gender ideology that has made its way into a movement that was originally had the original objective of I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the word,
Stonewall movement for gay rights. That they are co-opted now.
Assimilation. The original objective was assimilation. We wanted
Just
equal rights and to live our lives.
Yeah.
And now we've moved into we have to commit queer chaos acts of violence that they put in quotes in this book and in these dissertations because of survival. They're saying that this is because of survival, and that the biggest threat to their survival are people like me and people like Brian.
But they convince them that they're victims, and they have instilled that into their minds that every time they turn around, they got their whole life is a victimhood mentality.
And so the book itself, actually what it does is it tells these individuals who, I'm not going to get into the depths of this. The gay community in general is what would you say, vulnerable to this because maybe their parents disowned them or kicked them out at some point. I don't know. But what you're basically telling these people is that people like me and Brian are the biggest threat to their lives. And that in turn, what you're doing, you're not just pouring fuel on a fire. You're pouring fuel onto the floor, stacking it with wood and lighting the match. You're giving the people, you're telling
putting a target on your back, because if the thesis is that people like you, certainly people like me, who have exposed this stuff, if we are endangering their lives, it is kill or be killed first.
And you're in there. The book and the dissertation says that they have to do this in the name of clean justice. They have to do this for their survival, and that these acts are okay and that they're justified, because the only thing standing between them and equal rights are people like me and Brian. It is gender ideology and Trantifa all wrapped in one and lit on fire with a gallon of gasoline. Like it's very dangerous. And I don't think that people understand that the rhetoric it's not rhetoric. The words that are coming out of this book and out of this dissertation are dangerous.
He's teaching college kids, Brian. So he's teaching Sociology 101 in Asheville. That's something that most people have to take. If you're in the social sciences, you're required to take it.
Yeah. Well, Asheville, that says a lot right there, you know. Asheville is a hotbed for Antifa. It always has been. I mean, you can just walk around downtown through there and you see it around there. It's just a liberal hotspot for North Carolina. You know.
Well, Union County is becoming one as well, and Moore County as well. So what they will do is they will go in, they will cloister and try to take someone out. You know, we had Mayor Barnes on the show on Tuesday, and I'm telling, you audience, you know him. He's not backing down. Brian's not backing down. None of us are backing down, but we want everyone to be aware. First of all, this movement is, it's fresh, right? We're just learning of this after the school shootings. Now, after Charlie Kirk, I think more people are learning about it. It's confusing as hell. So we kind of wanted to do a breakdown on it. But again, Brian, your work, you've been one of the most dedicated and prolific and fearless protesters. You've always said, the movement against this perversion is going to come from gays leading at the front. And so I salute you.
In the late 80s, early 90s, I fought for gay rights just like every, other gay person. And we had a different agenda back then. And then we allowed this TQ plus whatever to take over our community. And we've seen the results of that. We've seen, they go after the other crazies like them or the children. Those are the only two people left on this earth that they can confuse with their delusions. That's it. So it's up to us to stand out here and point out these delusions. Just like I will say this about the transsexual that has been going after Mayor Burns and everything. I've watched him progress over the past 4 years of cussing us out with the F-bombs or whatever, to like then calling us fascist Nazis, to last week where he sends a death threat to, you can follow Michelle, The Ball's in Your Court by Michelle Ball. She's a big supporter, speaks at the city council meetings with Mayor Burns, but he sent her a meme that said, I don't know if I can cuss, but it says,
I do.
Okay, it said, if you quote Charlie Kirk one more time, I'm going to fucking kill you. Well, he has court on October 3rd for communicating threats.
Okay.
So I'm going to be there. I'm going to make sure I want to be up in there. We've been fighting this evil for a long time. This is also the secretary of Union County Pride. So Union County Pride is highly
be investigated, because
they do, and they've come in with sad stories to like the city of Indian Trail, to where Indian Trail last year paid for the entire park, gave them the entire park. I mean, there's no money coming into Union County Pride. They're dependent on these cities to start giving them free spaces and stuff to hold their event. That's why I invited you to the Pride protest this year. We're going to be out there again this year. I believe Mayor Burns will.
I'm happy to be there. I am definitely coming. And Sean said he's going to come with me.
Yeah, we're good. We're trying to get a lot. I know personally, I've got a handful of gay people from Union County that are going to come out there. I'm slowly but surely getting these people involved. So, hopefully we're going to have a good crowd. We're going to draw attention to the pedo activity with this group. I don't understand 4 years worth of history, and you've got 4 years in existence, and you've got this history of all these connections to pedophiles.
And now a connection to militancy. So there's two separate dangerous. I can't think of any more dangerous combination.
No. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Gender Education Network. It's based, you've heard of it. They also partner with them. Union County Pride partners with them. And Gender Education Network targets children under the age of 12 and under.
Yep.
And they had an event in Waxhaw last year, and we got the police involved. The police said, when if that Chad Turner showed up, he would be arrested on the spot. If he saw any drag queens accepting any money, well, he finally got a chief that was actually had some balls to do something and stand up to these people and tell them no, because they've not been told no before. But said if he saw any child handing a drag queen any type of money, that they would be arrested as well. But we basically got that whole event. They maybe had 12 people there, none of them children. I mean,
the parents should be arrested.
Oh, they
parents
should.
need to be arrested. I'm sorry, but who in the heck? Okay, the last thing I wanted to play, just as we're ending, and whenever we have guests on that we love, we go over. It's a sign of love, actually.
Okay.
I have to play this. We just have to just a 2-second weigh in. Speaking of crazy progressives, whoops. Okay,
28 weeks pregnant.
Hold on. Dang it. Here we go, guys.
28 weeks pregnant. You know what I'm going to take? Some Tylenol to see the benefit. It's going to work like a charm, and my baby won't have autism.
Y'all?
Doesn't Tylenol even say not to take during pregnancy? Even the company?
I don't know, but here's what I know is these
aren't the best parents.
People have just lost it. If Trump came out tomorrow and said oxygen is good for you, they'd suffocate themselves just to prove a point. I mean, this is asinine. It makes me sick, and honestly, it makes me really sad. Like, I'm sad for these people who are just so indoctrinated.
They would sacrifice their own child, and I don't know if I'm being too dramatic. I can be dramatic with you guys. With the gays, I can be dramatic. So I'm going to be very dramatic here. If you told them, these people, it's sort of like the same thing as a drag show, where they are sacrificing their own child. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to sacrifice my own child for publicity. They know, these parents know, these progressive parents know that there's going to be publicity there. They know that
they're like a designer bag. That's, you know,
well, that's trans kids. It's the exact thing with the trans kids. It's half of all. It's like the newest Birkin bag or the newest Cartier bracelet.
Yeah, thank you for helping me out, Cajun. I think I'm getting in line with it. They're kind of Munchausen's by proxy. They're using their own child for attention.
Mm-hmm. I'm all for drag shows. I'll show up to protest.
I love them.
If there's a business in downtown Monroe that wanted to hold a 24-hour drag show and people showed up trying to shut it down, I'd be right out there at that front door protesting to keep them open in business and let them do their drag shows 24 hours. The moment a child is involved, then that's it. I want them shut down. You know?
But again, it's the parents who want to kind of stage this kind of reaction and get this reaction, just like this woman on the video. But anyway, thank you for, I love this show. We've really covered the gamut here tonight, from Tough on Crime. And you know what? That reminds me, Tough on Crime has a legal component, which we talked about. It has a social component, Brian, which is what you're doing. You're giving accountability on the streets and you're saying, look, society says that this is not okay. And by the way, we're all three doing that and we are not backing down.
Can I say one last thing? When we get out here and start organizing and stuff, we have got to get the men more involved, because if it wasn't for the women showing up to protest these things, they would be still going on. It's the mama bears that have showed up and kept this stuff at bay. The men are supposed to be the protectors, the fathers, you know, and they're not showing up. That's why I admire Mayor Burns so much. He campaigned and he talks the talk, but he not only does that, he's out on the sidewalk walking the walk. And that's what more men need to do. And that's why I'm going to do everything in my power to see that Mayor Burns is reelected. I'm going to do roadside rallies, do whatever I have to do to see that he gets in there.
He's going places. He's got 6 children. Wife is model perfect. I mean, just
yes, Lauren is amazing.
The leftists hate good looking people, which clearly we are very good looking. They hate it. And that's what I put up there. I said, look, why did she call me a Nazi? Look at me. And look at her. And sometimes, yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know what? Ugly on the inside comes out.
Yeah. And if you want to follow some of our protests here in Union County, follow Lisa Metzger. I'm sure you know her, Lisa Metzger and Metzger Nation. She has Protect North Carolina Kids. She's very heavily involved in Union County protests as well. We're both reside here in Stanley County, but we travel an hour to go up there to protect the kids there.
I think I just want to add something briefly. You know, you talk, Brian, about the mama bears out there protecting, and, you know, I see the same thing. And I think that what we need is a coalition of dads against groomers.
Yeah.
And I think that you know, there's something there, but you're right. They are the protectors. It's interesting. I'd have to think a little bit more about it, about why, you know, it's the moms that are leading this charge ahead, but the dads need to get just as.
I would expect there'd be more dads out there than the moms.
You would think.
It's just completely opposite, but I think God for them, you know, they got me a little bit more.
I've never had my husband come to one of these things. And so maybe, you know, I'll pull away from watching football on Saturday. I will say this. I'm not gonna be able to get my husband to a gay pride parade. I will try.
They're fun to protest. I promise you. You'll see things you've never seen before.
I think I will. My husband grew up in Key West, and the family owns a lot of stores on Duval Street. So he's very familiar with drag shows, very comfortable with them. So I might be able to get him out there.
We got some good people that go out to the Charlotte Pride and protest. Sean, if you want to join us next year.
Yes, I'll get connected.
We have a good group of people. And out of politicians wise, I will say at the time, Allison Powers, she was the chairwoman for Union County Republican Party. She came out there and she stood. And I felt so sorry for Allison, because I could tell that her eyes were seeing things for the first time, and she was like, I had to keep going over there, Allison. That's right, but she stood strong the entire time. You know, we make it into a little fun event. You know, we get seen.
Well, I look forward to protesting future Pride events with you. Brian.
Thank
It
you.
was great
Thank
to,
you.
and I'll get connected for
And
sure.
Charlotte Pride Parade, even they when they banned our group, that we became the first gay group in the United States to be banned for supporting President Trump. There's another thing.
Awesome.
I don't know if you saw it about the Carolina Conference on Queer Youth 2025 that Mo Green, the superintendent, is going to be attending in Charlotte. It is
Say
being
what? Send that to me.
Yeah, it's being sponsored. It's being sponsored. I just came across this. It's being sponsored by Bank of America. Is the main thing. Generation Education Network and Time Out Youth, and he's going to be their guest.
Okay.
October 17th.
Okay.
From
I'm on it.
I don't think
8 a.m. until 4 p.m. And it says the location will be disclosed upon
I'm
registration.
noting that right now.
I'm going to send you a link.
And Sloan, I want to see it too. I don't want it to happen. Let's get on it.
Yeah, I'll be out there protesting if we can get.
We will drop a dime on his ass for sure.
If we can get the location,
yes.
if we get the location, I'll be out there protesting.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We've run over. I knew we would. We have a lot to talk about, but I will see you guys.
Two gay guys and a straight woman is definitely going to be.
Two gay guys and a Jew, right? Walk into a bar. We'll walk into a bar and you get, fun.
This is water, but if you do open a bottle of wine, we might be here for another hour.
Oh, wow. Are you kidding me? I'll be in tears after the first glass. But anyway, all right.
Thank you for having me on. Go ahead.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
That's a wrap on today's NC Political Tea. We hope you're leaving sharper, spicier, and ready to take on the political craziness in the Tar Heel State. If you loved what you heard, or even if it made you mad, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends, family, and that one coworker who just needs the truth. Follow us on social media to stay in the loop and get your daily dose of conservative fire. And remember, here in North Carolina, the grassroots grows stronger when we stand together. Until next time, keep the faith, keep up the fight, and don't let the left water down your tea. This is NC Political Tea, where we spill it like it is.